All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is the second half of the Friday podcast, which means it's time for the All Betz Are Off segment with Jeremy Jerome Betz. What's up, Jeremy? How's it going?
Good, Jeff. I'm excited for this week. We got a lot to talk about.
We absolutely do, and the Steelers are coming off. I'm sure it was good for you and your house
Yep.
beating the Browns and your wife, and we
Yep.
heard her on the Q&A last week, and yeah, it's just my kids were walking around the whole day saying, if it's brown, flush it down. And I said, damn right. That's exactly what you said. But still,
I love it. My kid was walking around all day going, "Go Browns, stinky Steelers." So I'm feeling like much more of a failure than you probably are.
yeah, it is. But that's neither here nor there. All right, so let's talk about this game because here we have this start. This is the part of the schedule that even though after the bye, everyone talked about the gauntlet and all the divisional games, we all knew that this trip to Philly was going to really kick off a crazy 3-game stretch. Yep. This game in Philly is unique in a lot of ways. You look at the stats, sometimes it's good on good. There are stats where the Eagles are far superior than the Steelers. The Eagles also aren't playing great football right now. What is the vibe you're getting when you think about these two teams as they match up in Week 15?
I just think this is going to be classic bully ball football.
Okay.
They want to win the same way by beating you up on along the defensive line, taking your offensive line and pushing them back on the quarterback, stopping the run. And then the Eagles they want to run the football. They want Saquon Barkley to lead the team in yards from scrimmage every week. They want to make sure that the offense runs through him. And then you got a Steelers team that, they want to run the ball too. They want to pound teams up front, set up that play action pass and work down the field deep. The Eagles love to hit the deep ball to A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. So it's really two very similar brands of football clashing this week. And I think it's great. It's kind of a throwback feel to this week. It kind of feels in a way like some of those old Steelers-Ravens matchups where you just knew it was going to be a bloodbath on the field. And the more physical, the team that executes at a higher level in the trenches, they're going to be the team that wins. So this is a fun one. And I think it's very intriguing, Jeff, that we've been talking about this 3-4 game stretch all season since the schedule came out. And it's one of the rare times where it's as daunting now as it looked like it was going to be going into the year. So I know the Bengals they don't have the record that they wanted, but that game still has immense implications probably for the Steelers season. So this 4-game stretch starting with Philly is a tough one.
It's lived up to the billing so far. And when you look at talk about the records and stuff like that, and I think this game, I agree with the lead up, feeling like it's Baltimore, Pittsburgh, but I think there's going to be a little bit more scoring than we're used to seeing. I mean, you think back even to the Ravens game earlier this year, 18-16 final score. We'll see how it plays out. We'll get to our predictions, but this AFC North has become a 2-horse race, and we've known this for the past couple weeks. In these last 2 games, I'll see if you agree or disagree. I want the Steelers to win this game bad in a lot of ways, but I also think personally, I think about, it's the next week that is the biggest game. If they drop this game, let's say they lose in Philly. First, no Steeler fan will be shocked, but it's always going to be the game on Saturday at M&T Bank Stadium. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah. I agree. What I really, really love going into that Ravens game with that 2-game lead in the division still. Absolutely. I would love that. But yeah, you're right. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. If in my opinion, the Steelers had a better chance at winning the division than the Ravens, because if they beat the Browns and they beat the Ravens, you kind of lock it up, right?
Yep.
So that kind of still holds true for me. I just would be, I would love to have that cushion still in place. But when you talk about how important this game is for the Steelers, I think this is more of a vibe check for the Steelers than anything else this game. Is this a team in Philadelphia who clearly is a Super Bowl contender in their conference? It's a team that has really outmatched you the last 2 times you've faced them on both sides of the ball. They've run circles around you. Have you elevated yourself enough, Pittsburgh, this season to where you can be in the same conversation as a team like Philadelphia? If it's a close game, even if you lose, I think you put yourself in that conversation. And that to me is just as important for what the Steelers want to accomplish down the road as a W is. And I would love to learn that while getting that W, as Mike Tomlin says. But this game, more so than the Ravens game, has that vibe check feel to it, if you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Now, last question before we go to our AFC North picks and take a look at those games. George Pickens is probably not going to play. I mean, he hasn't practiced yet this week. We know this. And unless something crazy happens on Friday, today, I don't foresee that happening. He's not going to play. So who takes over for the production? Because I don't count last week. I don't. When they practiced with George Pickens Monday through Friday, and he was limited on Friday, and then they find out before the game he's inactive, that's not a week of preparing for not having him there. This week, they do have the time to put a plan in place. Who do you think takes over the lion's share of that production that we're used to seeing from GP?
Yeah, I think the easy answer, I say that and somebody's going to say the easy answer is something else, but the easy answer to me is that you just plug Mike Williams into that George Pickens role and you go from there and you see what the guy can do. This is Mike Williams. We forget because of the injuries or the injury at the end of the year. This is a guy coming off, even though he's, I think 31 years old or something like that at this point.
Oh my God.
2,000 yard seasons in a row with the Chargers. And he's still got it, in my opinion. We saw that last week. We saw it in the touchdown catch against Washington, that if he warms up and gets on this moving train, and he has been on it for a while now, I think he can replicate some of that production. I don't think he's quite as explosive as George Pickens is. But I do think he can provide you a good 80% of what George Pickens can give you as far as down the field, contested catch type stuff. And I think that's enough to replicate his production to where the other guys in the offense, Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, those guys can continue to do their roles without having to supplement for the lack of George Pickens, if that makes sense. Now, if Mike Williams goes down, things could go haywire and crazy real quick. I expect Calvin Austin to be game planned into this game, but I expect Mike Williams to kind of be George Pickens for a week or two here to the best of his ability, for better or for worse.
I agree with that. 100%. I agree with you, because if they can Mike Williams, like you said, even 80%, and he is the guy that when he's out there, the Philadelphia Eagles say we have to shade to this side. Now, all of a sudden, you have Van Jefferson can do Van Jefferson things. Calvin Austin is not going to be asked to do some of those things because he's not that style of receiver. And he's had a really good season. And he has to have his role, though. And so you can't have him doing someone else's role because he has to have his. I think that, you sprinkle in some Scotty Miller, but I agree. I think it's his Mike Williams. Mike Williams is going to have to be. And I think that last week was really important for him. He only had 36 yards receiving on 3 catches and 4 targets. Offensive pass interference was bogus, but I think it was important for him based on the fact that it got some trust with Russell Wilson and some trust with Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith now should know, I can put this guy out there. He's going to run the route that we ask him to, can make some tough contested catches, and that's what they need. That's what they need. So we'll see. I agree with you, though. Mike Williams, for sure. All right, let's talk about the AFC North. We'll get to the Steelers last, as we always do. Let's start off. All these teams play at 1 o'clock. Let's start off with the dud. The dud is the Ravens at the Giants. Tommy DeVito is quarterbacking the New York Giants. The Ravens are giving 16 points on the road in MetLife Stadium with a total of 42.5. I think we all agree that the Ravens win, but do they cover the 16-point spread?
Yeah, they do. Now I am not betting on that this week. That's just, you're just begging for giving your money away to a sports book if you bet on that. However, I would take that. I would take the points for the Ravens at this point because I know the Ravens coming off a bye. They are coming off a disappointing loss to Philadelphia. They're 2 games back of Pittsburgh. This is their chance to, in their eyes, make that game next week mean a whole heck of a lot more if Pittsburgh somehow falls to Philadelphia this week. So you sit in a position where the Ravens coming off of that, they're going to be angry at their previous performance. They're rested, getting a little healthier. I think they come out a house of fire and they really put it on a Giants team that's mailed it in for 2024 and they're just hoping to wrap up a number 1 overall pick probably at this point.
Yeah. And I think the Ravens also want to send a message, and I think they're going to do that. We know John Harbaugh does that. He doesn't care.
Statement game. Yep.
Yes. He will run
and it's
it
an
up.
NFC team. It's an NFC team and Lamar Jackson beats the heck out of those teams most of the time anyway. So this is just not going to go well for Giants fans. They're going to be piling out of that stadium if they dare show up.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's go to the next game. Bengals, Titans in Tennessee, Nashville. Cincinnati's giving 5.5 points on the road. This is a 5-8 team versus a 3-10 team. It's exactly what you would think. What do you think about this game?
This is a stinker of a game too. The Titans are really bad. And I look at a Cincinnati team that still has hope for a playoff berth. You think if they beat Tennessee this week and then they can win next week, I can't remember who their next opponent is, but that puts them at 7-8 with 2 games to play, and one of those being against the rival Steelers. I think Cleveland actually is.
They have the Bengals schedule is Titans this week at home versus the Browns, home versus the Broncos, and then they go to the Steelers to finish it up.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I think that they're looking at that they're in the playoffs already. I mean, we've seen that sentiment voiced on Hard Knocks. And they're going to come out playing tough this week too. I think that they beat up on Tennessee. That offense is just too good. I was surprised kind of how close the Cowboys game was. It kind of makes you feel like the Bengals really aren't a great team. They just kind of play the same way against every team, and it's a close game. And if it's a bad team they're facing, they play poorly in that close game. If it's a good team they're facing, they kind of rise up and play good against that team in a close loss. So in this case, though, I think there is a good bit of separation between the talent levels of both of these squads. I think the Bengals roll in this one.
Yeah, I would say take the Bengals giving the points. I think that Tennessee's thinking about that draft slot. They don't want to win many games. We'll put it that way. All right, let's go to the last, not the last AFC North game, but the last, it's not a Steelers game. The Kansas City Chiefs go to the Cleveland Browns, 12-1 versus 3-10. Kansas City's giving only 4.5 points here. That should tell you a lot. The Chiefs are winning. They're not winning by large margins. Sometimes they're getting lucky. And say what you want about Cleveland, they are still playing tough, even though they've been eliminated mathematically from the postseason. Is there any way that Cleveland at home upsets the Chiefs? That's the question.
Man, my heart really wants to say yes to that question. Let me ask you, Jeff, could we wake up Monday morning and be looking back and saying it finally got to the Chiefs and the Jameis Winston magic played the other way than it has been, or than it did against the Steelers last week, and they kind of surprised the Chiefs? We know this game's going to be close. I don't think anybody's sitting here thinking the Chiefs are going to blow out Cleveland. So could there be a chance where Cleveland stuns this week? I think there's a real chance. So if I'm betting this one, I'm taking Cleveland on the points, and I would not be surprised if they snuck one out here. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say the Chiefs win because that's the smart thing to do. It's the right thing to do, but my heart says, oh man, Cleveland, if I, for all the hate I've given you over the years, if you could do some magic for us this week, that would be a lot of fun.
If they win this game, it's going to have to happen in 2 ways. First, they are going to need their special players, and they do have some good players on that team, to really show out. Myles Garrett's going to have a game. He's going to have to be in Patrick Mahomes' lap every time he drops back to throw.
Yep.
And then they're going to have
Chiefs offensive line is terrible.
Chiefs
offensive tackles are really bad. So
And so I look at the Browns, who now all of a sudden can score points. They're going to have to run it up. Like they're going to have a Monday night performance against Denver type outing to actually
Sure.
say, okay, Chiefs, you got the defense. If we put up the points, can you match us point for point? We've all been wanting to know if they can do that this whole season. And so the Chiefs defense is legit. I'm not going to say it isn't. And Jameis Winston is going to be Jameis Winston. But every now and then he has those games where you're like, dang, that dude can still sling the rock. And Jerry Judy's a pretty good receiver. The Chiefs win the game. But I would probably take the 4.5 points and say I'll take the Browns getting 4.5 at home.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just a kind of food for thought as a Steelers organization playing at 425, you're going to know the outcome of this game before you play. If somehow Cleveland were to sneak this out, you now have a shot at the 1 seed in your hands. You control your destiny for that. Does that give you a little extra motivation against Philadelphia to go out there and win? I'm not saying they'll think of it that way, or say that they would think of it that way, but as a fan, I'm like jumping all over that opportunity potentially.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's talk about the Steelers game, the game everyone cares about. Steelers at Eagles. The spread currently is the Steelers are getting 5.5 points on the road, and the over-under is 43. So, Jeremy, how do you see this game playing out? What's your score prediction?
That spread tells me that Vegas is really looking hard at the history of this matchup. The fact that the Steelers have not won in Philadelphia since 1965, that's kind of a ridiculous stat when you just parse it out. 10 games in Philadelphia in that time frame, 0-10. There haven't been many close ones. It's been a lot of beatdowns. I remember 2005 Steelers on their way to a Super Bowl win, and they go into Philadelphia, or maybe that was 2008. Excuse me. They go into Philadelphia and Roethlisberger gets sacked 9 times.
Yep.
It's a total beatdown. And you just kind of felt like, oh, how does this happen when you're a team that's rolling like this? And that's kind of how I feel about this game. I just don't know. This feels like one of those like Cleveland Browns haven't won in Pittsburgh in 20 years type things where it's just the way things go. And I have trouble seeing the Steelers breaking that curse. If they do, it's because Russell Wilson is a different dude and he knows how to beat this team. He's 6-0 against them. It's because the Steelers know how to win tough, close games on the road against high-quality opponents. They're undefeated against winning teams in 2024. It'll be that their defensive line can match the energy of the Eagles' offensive line and slow down Saquon Barkley and force that strained connection between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown to be the thing that beats them. It's a lot of variables. I think they have a chance to win. On paper, they're an equal team, I think, to the Eagles. I just think the history plays into this matchup and that the Steelers will come up just short. My score prediction is Eagles 24, Steelers 20. I'm taking the over on the points just barely, and I'm taking the Steelers on the point spread there. But I do think the Eagles win this one on the money line.
All right, so the Steelers on the money line are plus 205, and I'm going to tell you to take the Steelers on the money line. And the reason why is I think streaks are made to be broken. Even the Browns will win in Pittsburgh at some point. It's just a matter of time, and it's not going to last forever. The Eagles also have a pretty hefty winning streak going on. Those streaks are made to be broken too.
That's true.
And so, for me, I look at this and say, I think personally that the Steelers, the one thing that differentiates them from all these other teams is their ability to come up with the big takeaway when it matters the most. Yeah. Think back to Cleveland. What was the play that really turned the tide? Keanu Benton's interception of Jameis Winston on a screen pass. You have these things. It's not a trend. It's not a fluke anymore with these Steelers. This is just how they do it. This is how they are built. If they don't get that timely takeaway, then they might lose this game, but I think they get it. I think the Steelers get it at a time where all they need is a Chris Boswell field goal to ice it. Final score, Steelers 23, Philadelphia Eagles 20. I think it's going to be that's a push with the over-under, which is 43 right now. But I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be close. I think if you take the 5.5 points, I think you're safe. I don't see this being, I mean, last time they were in Philly, gosh, I mean, Kenny Pickett was the quarterback. I mean, they were
Yeah.
completely outclassed in every possible way. They were not ready
Was
for that.
Yeah, was that no TJ or was that no Cam? I think it was no Cam, right?
No
No
Cam, yeah.
Cam.
But I mean, that was
Yeah.
a game where, like, I mean, my gosh, AJ Brown was just, I think it was a Kello Witherspoon, was just all over,
Yeah.
just doing whatever he wanted. I think they're better equipped this
No
game
Joey
than
Porter Jr. in that game because he wasn't drafted yet by the Steelers. They did not have a good cornerback do it back then.
I don't think Joey Porter Jr. will go up against AJ Brown. If the
Oh,
Steelers
okay.
do what they have been doing, Dante Jackson's going to be on AJ Brown, and they're going to give him all the help. And Joey Porter, they're going to say, "You've got Devonta Smith. Go get him and take him out." He's a smaller guy, and Joey Porter's a big guy, so we'll see how that goes. But all right, Jeremy, any final thoughts here?
Well, on that note, I've been an advocate for that type of game plan where you're doubling the better receiver and sticking your lockdown guy on the secondary target. So I would not mind that game plan at all if that's the way the Steelers go about it. So tune into the Steelers Fix. We had a great discussion that this last week. I think it ran a day early this week because we didn't have the show from remind me which one.
Steel City Insider.
The Steel City Insider. Yeah. My bad. We didn't have that one this week, so check that out. Had a great conversation with Andrew Woodbar. And then we broke down the college football playoff landscape. If you're interested in taking a look at that on the Draft Dynasty podcast, so check that out as well. And then stay tuned. We're going to be breaking down this game after it's over. We've got an article coming out here soon as well. So stay tuned to Steel Curtain Network, man.
All right, Jeremy. As always, enjoy it, and we'll talk next week. Take it easy.
Have a good one, Jeff.